AM 1480 WLEA.
Brian O'Neill in for Kevin Dorn again on the Newsmaker Show. Today's show, we'll have Hornell Mayor Shawn Hogan, who's on the hospital's New Vision Task Force, and St. James CEO Jennifer Sullivan.
It's time for the Newsmaker Show on News Talk AM 1480 WLEA. Here's Kevin Dorn.
Hornell Mayor Shawn Hogan, thanks for joining us.
Well, my pleasure, Brian.
And Jen Sullivan, thank you for coming on.
No problem. Nice to talk to you.
Mayor Hogan, you said yesterday on the news that you really hope that the over $1 million will ensure things at St. James for the next 9 months, protect the hospital as far as employment goes, and help ensure that things will go well between St. James and UR Medicine in Hornell. So good news for the hospital and Hornell.
It's very good news for Hornell because it guarantees stability in our healthcare provider, which is St. James, and a long-time local hospital. And also it gives the employees who work for St. James some stability. And so they know that they'll have employment and jobs, and the region that surrounds Hornell, certainly they should know that St. James is alive and well and offering a full gamut of services here in Hornell. So certainly great news, and it also buys some time for the planning process to continue, and the partnership that we're going to form with the University of Rochester Medicine gives us time to work out the details and develop the new healthcare continuum for the Hornell and the Hornell region. So it's great news.
Jen, you must have been thrilled when this news about the $1.2 million, at least $1.2 million coming in, was announced yesterday.
Yes, we were very excited. We've been working with the Department of Health very closely since December, so they're very well aware of our situation. And we did request $6.4 million, and what we expect is that we'll get our first payment in the end of June and monthly payments thereafter, and we're very happy to hear that the first $1.2 million payment was authorized.
Jen, wanted to ask you, this $1.2 million and possibly more after that, will that help protect jobs at St. James?
Yeah, I mean, basically what the money is for is to sustain our operations during this transformation. So I don't anticipate, any major changes in the short run. I think the message is consistent. We're looking to transform from the St. James as we know it today to a financially viable, outpatient-focused delivery system going forward. And, this funding will certainly help us stabilize our financial situation as we transition.
Additional funding coming in after the original $1.2 million. How much do you hope for from the State Health Department, and are there any other sources of government money coming in or from anywhere else that you're hoping for?
We're hoping that the state will provide the cash flow we need to sustain operations through March of 2015. I think the actual amount of the need will fluctuate depending on how the business does from month to month. And so, based on our projections in the budget we submitted, we believe the total need will be about $6.4 million. However, it may be more than that. It may be less than that. And we have also submitted a request to the state for money for a capital restructuring. Certainly we need to restructure the delivery system in Hornell, and as we had talked about some time ago, was an efficient outpatient-focused facility. So we've requested capital support. That's a recent submission, and we have not yet heard on that.
And Mayor Hogan, you are on the New Vision Task Force, but I'm guessing that, using your mayor's job, you've been working behind the scenes to secure some help for the hospital as far as funding go. Can you tell us about any of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're working in tandem, but I'm working as a member of the task force, but also on a parallel lines. I've had meetings with health department officials and high-level officials in the Cuomo administration, and to keep to keep the pressure on, and also to highlight how important it is for our community to finish this process. This $6.4 million that potentially is going to come St. James way as a start. Well, the real big thing is looking for some capital funding to help with a new facility. And the governor did budget $1.2 billion in this year's budget that was passed April 1st for just such purposes, to assist hospitals in rural areas with capital needs. So, as Jen said, that they've applied for some capital funding, and that's imperative that we get that, because it's hard to move forward in a partnership with University of Rochester if you don't know what the nature of the facility is going to look like, and what kind of services are going to be provided. So it's hard to plan. So the next big step is getting the state to commit to the capital funding request that's gone in, and we'll move from there. In fact, I just got through authoring a letter this morning to Larry Schwartz, who is the governor's secretary, and with my support and plea, so to speak, to the state that we are a great candidate for that capital funding, and that it should come our way. When Arnett Ogden and St. Joe's merged in Elmira, the state provided them with $20 million to facilitate some capital needs. So, I think that we're in the right ballpark with our partnership with the University of Rochester Medicine and St. James, and they'll be a great partner. And so I'm hopeful, and I think the state up to this time has been very supportive of our needs, and they'll continue to do so.
Jen Sullivan, you told the Hornell Evening Tribune, I think it was in the Sunday Spectator actually, same newspaper, that the Senator Schumer bill, if passed, would bring more doctors to Hornell. Would this good news from Schumer tie in with your plans at all on the $1.2 million coming in?
Well, it would tie in. I mean, if you're looking to transition to, a more robust system, more robust array of outpatient services, you need physicians in the area providing the services. So certainly that would support that need to get more physicians down into our rural area.
And Mayor Hogan, have you had a chance at all to speak with the senator on this legislation?
No, I have not. I just know he announced the initiative last week, and it would have a positive impact, not only St. James, but any rural area where they struggle to not only recruit but retain physicians. Today's physicians are a little bit different than the old family practitioners of days gone by. They want pretty steady hours, 9 to 5 type jobs, and not a lot of call time or hospital visits. So you're dealing with a different
model
ethos, I should say, with today's modern medical school graduates. So, and they like to live in more urban areas where there's more offerings, things like that. So I think this legislation that the senator has proposed would be helpful. But I think even more helpful for us is our affiliation with our tertiary partner, University of Rochester, because they're used to serving the area and they'll continue to do it. So I think that is more and more. That's more of a plus for us than this potential legislation.
It's the Newsmaker Show. Brian O'Neill filling in for Kevin Doran. This morning on the line with us, CEO of St. James, Jen Sullivan, and Hornell Mayor Shawn Hogan, who in addition to being the mayor of Hornell, is also on the New Vision Task Force for St. James Hospital. We'll continue our conversation about the future of St. James in just a moment. On the Newsmaker Show this morning on AM 1480 WLEA, Brian O'Neill filling in for Kevin Doran. Our guest this morning on the line, Hornell Mayor Shawn Hogan, who's on the New Vision Task Force, and St. James CEO Jennifer Sullivan. Jen Sullivan, wanted to ask you, there's been talk for several months now of a new hospital building. That with this money coming in, would that help with a new building, a new hospital facility, or would you like to fix up what you have now? Your thoughts there?
Well, there's two different pots of money, I guess is the best way to explain it. The $1.2 million authorization we just received really is to sustain our operations as they are today. So that's really cash flow to operate the business. And so that would not help in terms of building a new facility. We have applied to the state for a separate amount of money to restructure and build a new facility that will allow us to implement the new vision going forward. And so, we're hopeful and optimistic that we'll get dollars, the capital dollars needed to transition into a new facility.
Any talk of a location yet, of a new address, or would you tear down what you have and build something new and right in the same location? Any thoughts there?
All of that is really currently under review. The request we put into the Department of Health really had in mind building a smaller, efficient, outpatient-focused facility over near the nursing home, so everything would be located on one campus. But as you can imagine, as the planning evolves, that could change, and so we're focused more on a new facility as opposed to renovating what we have at this point in time for a couple reasons. The current or existing building is really old, and so renovating it would not be justified due to its age. But number two, operating out of an old building is very expensive, and our estimates show it would cost about $2 million more per year to operate out of the existing facility if we renovated it as opposed to building new.
Mayor Hogan, your thoughts on building a new building for the hospital?
Well, I think that's in the planning stages, Brian. Certainly, I want to preserve the most services that we possibly can during the transition phase in the partnership with UR Medicine. So determining, I guess the size of the building would be determined by the amount of services that are going to be preserved and the amount of physicians' offices that will be there. So I certainly support the effort. There's been a long time. This isn't just something new. I mean, I was on St. James board for many years prior to the going back on serving on the New Vision Task Force, and we've talked about building a more prominent, visible, and accessible building, 20 years ago or 15 years ago. So it's not new, because what you have down there is a infrastructure that was built in pieces. You have the original hospital building that was 1800s, late 1800s version. Then you had the 1950s version of the hospital on Kenneth Steele Street, and then you had the 1960s edition, then the 1980s, and then you had some rework done in the 90s. So it's a hodgepodge of different things. Hard to efficiently deliver health care services there because of how it's broken up and laid out. So I believe really a new facility is called for. How big and what the nature of the services is going to be provided, I think Jen will tell you, is yet to be determined.
Jen Sullivan, Dr. Annabelle has been on this show, and he said more than once when talking about hospital issues that many patients coming in for medical care now at St. James are being treated outpatient and no longer inpatient. And you say that if there's a new building constructed, would reflect that sort of thing. Can you tell us what programs do you see as being the most important in a new hospital facility?
I think there's certain core services you need in every rural community. Whether it's emergency services or urgent care, you're thinking about preventative and wellness services, primary care, lab radiology, your diagnostics, your therapies, those types of things. But what you also need is specialty care, and where you need to collaborate and draw on the efficiencies within the region is in the specialty areas in particular. So, you could see that you may end up with centers of excellence in the different rural areas, so the specialists can come down and serve our areas, but none of us have enough volume to fully employ all these specialists. So if we can share them and develop specialty centers of excellence in the different communities and develop a traveling system that could transport patients from one community to another, you could see how it could work. But nonetheless, I think most rural communities need your basic emergency urgent care services and primary care services.
Jen, do you see any future alliances between St. James and Hornell and hospitals in maybe Wellsville or Dansville or Cuba or any of the others in terms of, shipping patients here or there or the other place for some things and having them come here for others?
I think it would make a whole lot of sense. I mean, if you look at rural hospitals, we're all in a similar situation. We all want to have a sustainable healthcare presence in our, city or town. We all need to achieve financial viability, not only in the short term, but in the long term. And we're all interested in participating in a larger system of integrated service delivery. And so the only way I can see this working, really, really well is if we all do end up working together as a new vision for the entire region, not just Hornell, but our region, where we can help each other achieve financial viability and, again, sustain services in all our community in the long term. And so I do think it's inevitable. I think we'll get there. I certainly hope we do. And, I'm looking forward to work on something for the region. I think that would be wonderful.
Mayor Hogan, we're down to just 3 minutes now. Any final thoughts before we go?
Well, I think that once this process is complete, and I want to first of all say Jen Sullivan and her team have done a remarkable job in the few months that Jen has been involved in this process. It's been remarkable what she's been able to accomplish. Pulling together a new vision task force and dealing with the community and the board and the physicians, and she's brought a sense of stability to the process. We know that we currently have a 121-bed hospital licensed to treat 120 patients. We have an average daily census of 12 or less. It's just not sustainable. And you're not admitted to the hospital anymore unless you really, really have a serious health issue. So moving towards a ambulatory care system-based system with excellent emergency services, surgical services, and all that thing, maybe a few short-stay beds, observation beds, that's the wave of the future. And I think that St. James really will be a model for other communities and other regions that are going to be faced with the same problem that St. James have been faced with. And we're on the cutting edge of this thing. So it's wonderful, and I think that's why the state is being so supportive, because they see it too. They see this as being a pilot project and a model for other areas in the state, not only the state but potentially the nation. So again, my hat's off and kudos to Jen and her team, and I'm just happy and proud to be a part of the process.
Jen Sullivan, any final thoughts before we go?
No, just thank you for the opportunity, and thanks, Shawn, for the kind words. I appreciate it, and we look forward to continuing to keep the communication lines open and inform the community.
Jen Sullivan and Hornell Mayor Shawn Hogan. Jen Sullivan being the hospital CEO at St. James, and Mayor Shawn Hogan, of course, Hornell's mayor and a member of the New Vision Task Force at the hospital. I want to thank you both for coming on today.
Thanks, Brian. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks, Brian. Have a great day.
Thank you both. It's AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. Stay with us.